Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Isenghausen. It's August 16th today. The main news at this moment. Our drones visited the Moscow region and beyond tonight, and several major targets were hit. Russian authorities are calling this attack one of the most massive in recent times. Just over the Moscow region, according to the local governor, nearly 200 drones were shot down. Well, let's take a look at what they were shooting them down with. One of the main hits was the Wildberries logistics center in Koledino near Podolsk. It's the largest Wildberries warehouse with a complex area of nearly 230,000 square meters. In short, let's pour one out for Koledino. Finally, excellent quality from the Russian operators. A gorgeous angle. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at this video together? Beautiful. They really do know how to film when they want to. I think it's a matter of practice here. When the last Wildberries warehouse burns down, the footage will be perfect. They'll get plenty of practice on the previous ones. By the way, this warehouse has been attacked more than once, but as I have said repeatedly, if Ukrainian drones have targeted something, they will burn it to the ground, which is exactly what happened. And by the most modest estimates, $2 billion worth of goods burned down there. What was it the Russian Ministry of Defense wrote yesterday? Like a bolt from the blue? I'm reading comments from Muscovites. How could they let this happen? This is practically Moscow, the most the largest Wildberries warehouse. How could this be? Let me clarify. The 4 largest Wildberries warehouses have already been destroyed, and here is a comment that I decided to present in its entirety. Let me quote it. I just go out onto the balcony in the morning, and instead of the sky, I have a black wall of smoke. There's no horizon at all. Everything is burning, smoking. There's soot in my throat. I can't breathe. They say Ukrainian drones blew up the Wildberries warehouse. God, how? How did this even reach the Moscow region? I just can't wrap my head around it. Explain it to me. Maybe I'm missing something. Where is Moscow and where is everything else? How did this even happen right here on our doorstep? Why are drones flying over our homes like they own the place? What is even happening? What did we do to deserve all this? What are ordinary people to blame for? Oh, and one more thing at the end. I'm terrified. I'm just shaking all over. I don't know where to run, what to do. If warehouses are burning to the sky in the Moscow region, then what will happen tomorrow? This is some kind of real nightmare. That's not even the nightmare yet. The nightmare is waiting ahead. If you don't stop your bald ghoul, a real nightmare awaits ahead. You know, in my opinion, even the dullest representative of the Russian world should have already understood that with every passing day, everything is getting worse and worse for Russia. And in general, I would like to remind these commentators, by the way, that Russia's is Kievan and we can burn whatever we want in our own home. Well, you know, winter is still ahead, so you might as well just climb into a burial pit in the Moscow region right now. But that's not all. In Domodedovo, the strike hit the Severnoye Domodedovo production and logistics complex. This is a massive Class A facility with an area of over 500,000 square meters. This time they didn't burn everything. 56,000 square meters were burned, but they are working on it. 500,000 will burn, just like Koledino. But that's not all either. A strike was carried out on the Russian Bastion coastal missile system in annexed Crimea. The very same Bastion that the Russian ghouls used to shell Ukraine with supersonic Onyx and hypersonic Zircon missiles. I have verified the information. The strike on this Bastion took place near the village of Rezervna, that's between Balaclava and Cape Aya. So this Bastion, a mobile system, would drive out there, you know, onto the cliffs, onto the shore and fire from there. And that's where they took it out. The very same vermin that was constantly shelling Odesa. Local authorities report that there are as many as 5 fire hotspots there. I think they hit it well, and I really hope they struck when it had a full ammunition load. Actually, I walked these places between Balaclava and Cape Aya up and down when I was a kid. My favorite places, we went hiking there 1,000,000 times. Just the most beautiful places. The Russians came, littered everything with their military bases, polluted the beaches with fuel oil, and brought their scumbags to Crimea too. But that's not all. They also struck a facility in Russia that produces rocket fuel for the Smerch, Uragan, and Tornado SMLRS. This is the Kamensky plant in the Rostov region. One building there was simply atomized. They are still looking for the workers. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Now is the perfect time to do it. You can do it right now, without delay. We are fighting against Putin's propaganda, but together we will do it much more effectively. So subscribe, and don't forget, everyone who subscribes gets soft and silky hair. And one more important clarification regarding yesterday's attack. At the attacked space center in Samara, the workshop where microelectronic components for Soyuz rockets were assembled was hit. This is workshop 106A. Let me remind you, the Progress Rocket Space Center, which was hit by Flamingo missiles, is a facility of strategic importance. They assembled Soyuz launch vehicles there, which delivered both Russian military and civilian satellites into orbit, including the satellites of the Rasvet program. And right next to this building 106A, which was hit, is building 106B, and that is where the final assembly of the launch vehicles was carried out. Yesterday there was information that it was this specific building that was damaged, but I think that considering the warhead of the Flamingo missile, which is over a ton, both buildings were affected. Yesterday I saw posts of indignation from Russian military bloggers. How could this happen? They couldn't protect the heart of the space program. What on earth is going on? Well, you yourselves know perfectly well where all the air defense systems have been pulled to. You know, but you're just afraid to say it. One Botox-filled backside is currently more important in Russia than the rest of Russia combined, with its space programs, its population, and everything else altogether. Well, in general, Ukraine is performing an incredible feat. The armed forces of Ukraine are standing where perhaps no other army would have held out. And you know, an important point, during the Second World War, the Allies didn't just send tanks, planes, ammunition, trucks, and steel to the Soviet Union. They fought Hitler themselves. British and American pilots bombed German industrial centers by the thousands. The British Navy fought Germany in the Atlantic. The Allies also fought in North Africa. There was the landing in Italy. On June 6, 1944, they opened a full-scale Western Front in France. Millions of American, British, Canadian, and other soldiers fought directly against Hitler's army. Yes, the main and bloodiest land war against Nazi Germany took place on the Eastern Front, but the Soviet Union did not fight Germany alone. And now look at Ukraine. Yes, today Western countries are indeed selling weapons to Ukraine, providing loans and sharing intelligence. This is huge and critically important assistance. But the Americans are not bombing Russian military factories. The British are not bombing Russian military factories. French divisions are not standing near Pokrovsk, and American brigades are not opening a second front. It is the Ukrainians who are fighting the modern Hitler and the Russian army on the ground. Ukraine has been holding the front against a million-strong Russian force on its own for several years now. Moreover, Russia is being helped by China and North Korea. North Korea is actually sending its own troops to Russia, tens of thousands of soldiers. I would like to remind you that no one from the coalition is sending tens of thousands of their own military personnel to Ukraine. Yes, many states are helping Ukraine, but it is precisely the Ukrainians who are fighting and dying so that the Russian army does not advance further into Europe. And taking this opportunity, of course, I express my huge gratitude to everyone who is helping Ukraine fight against the modern Hitler. Thank you very much. And in every episode we have an important fundraiser for the Defense Forces of Ukraine. Today we are continuing the fundraiser together with the Pataki project for tactical medicine and 1,000 tourniquets for the legendary Azov. The fundraiser for tactical medicine is a fundraiser to save the lives of Azov fighters. Please watch this video.
Всім привіт! Мій позивний джедай, діючий військовослужбовець 12-ї бригади спеціального призначення Азов.
Привіт, мене звати Тата, і я засновниця проєкту «Птахи». Ми займаємося військовою і тактичною медициною.
І разом з Борисом
Тізенхаузеном ми збираємо на 1,000 турнікетів для бригади Азов. Дуже просимо вас підтримати збір, бо коли ви донатите на такмед, ви донатите на життя.
Let's help our warriors from the legendary Azov. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. The QR code in the corner also leads to the fundraiser. That is in case you happen to be watching me on another channel and don't see the link under this video. Tourniquets for the Azov brigade save lives, and in every episode I say a special thank you to you for helping our warriors, for helping Ukraine. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation accused the US and Turkey, I quote, of undermining mutual trust after the approval of shipments of thousands of missiles and shells to Kiev. Well, not thousands of missiles, of course, but that's what the Russian Foreign Ministry decided. That is, the Russian Foreign Ministry even called the planned transfer of American missiles and artillery ammunition from Turkish arsenals to Ukraine the opening of Pandora's box. I will remind you, and this delivery was approved by the US State Department. Zakharova crawled out, can you imagine? They forced her to rise from suspended animation on a day off. Well, what are you going to do, Russians? What are you going to do to Turkey? What are you going to do to Erdogan? What are you going to do to Donald Trump, to the State Department? Is Putin going to poke at Turkish tomatoes with a little knife? Take that, have some Turkey, have some Erdogan. What are you going to do? It's simple. You can complain to the lottery for all the good it'll do. Erdogan is going to close the Black Sea to you completely right now. And go ahead and write letters to nowhere. The whole world sees that the bald scum cannot capture the Donbass, but has no intention of ending the war. And now they've also touched upon Turkish economic interests. He will respond. The fact that Erdogan doesn't stand on ceremony with the Russians, I think, is clear and known to everyone. Remember the shot-down Russian military aircraft. It lasted 2 seconds in Turkish airspace, even less than 2 seconds. A Russian deputy by the name of Chepa spoke about, and here I must quote, the evaporation of the Anchorage spirit. All of this happened yesterday, on the anniversary of the meeting between Putin and Trump. A year ago, the Botox-filled Kapitoshka and Trump met in Alaska, and the first deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee on International Affairs, Alexei Chepa, stated a year later that the Anchorage spirit is no more. I think that the spirit has probably evaporated over the year. We haven't received anything in a year. What were we supposed to receive? Chepa stated. And yet this is simply an amazing phenomenon. One of the most pointless and shameful meetings of an American president, where a red carpet was rolled out for a maniac. Everything the world remembers about Anchorage, in my opinion, are these grimaces and contortions of Putin, who couldn't control himself after Rachel Scott's question. Rachel Scott then shouted and asked, "When will you stop killing civilians?" The pathetic heel-wearer started grimacing, making faces, pretending he hadn't heard. And just 2 months later, by the way, Kremlin propaganda gave birth to the very spirit of Anchorage. It didn't appear immediately after the meeting, after all. The first mention of this phrase, the spirit of Anchorage, actually occurred on October 10th. The mustachioed Floozy Peskov brought this spirit of Anchorage into the world. A unique situation. For a whole year, Russians talked about the spirit of Anchorage, yet never explained what this spirit actually consists of. Moreover, even Trump doesn't know what this spirit is, or in what situations Putin summons it there. The story with the spirit didn't fly, and a year later the Russians declared that it had evaporated. Lukashenko spoke out here yesterday. It's been a while since he was heard from. Well, first of all, he called Belarusians the best version of Russians. He said that Belarusians are Russians but with a quality seal. And he also said that he is so kind that he allows Ukrainians to pick mushrooms and berries on the territory of Belarus, that he is not an aggressor at all. You can shove those mushrooms and berries up your own tuba. Ukraine will never forget how you, Lukashenko, like the lowest rat, let the Russians through your territory, treacherously opening up an offensive on Kiev for them. How you lied about some map and about how an attack on Belarus was being prepared from somewhere. And do you remember another version from Lukashenko as to why the Russians went for Kiev? That after the exercises they decided to take a shortcut back to Russia from Belarus and go through Ukraine to Kiev. I don't know, you stale potato pancake, couldn't you have tried just a little bit? Couldn't you have asked Kolenka to come up with something more plausible? By the way, remember this phrase, and I will show you now where the attack on Belarus was being prepared from. And then this phrase, and if a preventive strike had not been launched on the positions 6 hours before the operation. Now these details are fading, but back then Lukashenko claimed that Ukraine wanted to strike the positions of both the Belarusians and the Russians, mind you, during their joint exercises, and that Russia beat Ukraine to it by just 6 hours. Then I don't know how all this squared with what Putin said. I have made the decision to launch a special military operation. Moreover, Lukashenko's version kept changing radically. He was lying the whole time. At first, he claimed Ukraine was preparing to attack first. Then it turned out the Russians were leaving exercises and accidentally invaded Ukraine. Then there was a version that it wasn't accidental. Then there was a version that they were provoked. A lying, mustachioed root vegetable who thinks he can play the fool forever and dodge responsibility. It won't work. And for some reason, I feel that when the time actually comes to answer for it, he will point his finger at Putin and scream that it was all him, it wasn't me, he forced me to do it. I have that feeling. Another telling piece of news, very telling in terms of understanding how dictators cooperate with each other and, in general, what they want from us. The president of South Korea has proposed that North Korea begin negotiations to end the war. That is, South Korea has truly made a very strong, important diplomatic gesture. On August 15th, yesterday, President Lee Jae-myung proposed starting negotiations that should lead to replacing the 1953 armistice with a full-fledged peace regime and the actual end of the Korean War. I'll remind you that a peace treaty between North and South Korea was never signed. Formally, the war ended with an armistice. And so the president of South Korea says, let's put a period to this issue. And the nuclear Pokemon Kim Jong Un is silent. Do you think he wants to finish this? He wants to put an end to this? Of course not. Regimes like the North Korean and Putin's regimes chronically need an external threat. They are fueled by this external threat. They live off this external threat. Such regimes absolutely need an external enemy to explain away poverty, repression, militarization, and the need for the leadership to remain in power indefinitely. Peace, for regimes like Putin's and Kim Jong Un's, is more dangerous than conflict. I'll show you a clip now. This is December 1st, 2018. Here, Putin told you everything himself. Take a look.
В условиях каких-то боевых действий олигархической власти всегда легче продолжать политику, направленную на ограбление своего собственного народа и своего государства. Кому война, а кому мать родная. Всегда войной легче прикрыть свои провалы в экономической и в социальной политике.
A full confession. This underground creep doesn't even feel any shame. And a fan of the Russian world, by the way, thinks that the hostile West constantly wants to attack them, always wants to take something from them, and this is in always mode. And they actually believe that everyone wants to attack them. There is a very simple question, for self-verification, to which these Putin acolytes have no answer. If the West wants to attack you, wants to take something from you, why did it supply so much to Russia? Technologies, software, electronics, equipment, cars, machine tools, chips. Why? So it turns out the West spent decades buying Russian oil and gas, selling Russia technology, equipment, cars, building factories, investing hundreds of billions, essentially making Russia stronger and more technologically advanced, just so it could later attack a stronger adversary. Just look at your oil and gas extraction equipment. Whose is it anyway? Why did the West supply it to you, by the way, until you attacked Ukraine? And why did the West buy oil and gas from you at prices many times higher than what China pays? Maybe it's not the West that wants to take something from you. Putin himself is taking it and handing it over to China, for example, on a silver platter. And I will never tire of reminding you, after all, that the USSR was much stronger ideologically and financially than modern Russia. The USSR had both a closed-loop weapons production cycle, and control over mines was many times stricter. There was no hostile internet, no YouTube, no Telegram, and it still collapsed. The USSR was stronger, more closed off, and scarier than today's Russia. But when the system itself rotted, it turned out that yes, there are missiles that can destroy the world, but they cannot save the state from collapse. So, my dear friends, let's not panic, let's pull ourselves together, keep our heads on straight so they don't fly off prematurely, and help the armed forces of Ukraine. And take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And let's help our Azov fighters. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.